Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ethos Online. Again, this is a space where we can be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. So, wherever you're joining us, again, we want to say welcome. This has been such a fun journey. Here at Ethos, we like to delve deep, deep, deep. We like to ask questions about what is the context? Who's the audience? Who's the writer? How did the writers perceive this piece? What were the symbols, the motifs? All of that. We delve deep. And so every week we offer something I would argue that's pretty unique and typically you don't see when you read these texts, at least in a Eurocentric kind of Christian perspective. Typically we look at the Jewish perspectives so that then, again, they're the people who wrote this, then we can apply it to today. We can add that more modern interpretation. So that's what we do, and we spend hours doing it. And so we are so thrilled that you join us again. And so most of you know that have been following us, we've been studying the book of Genesis for over almost 2 years now. And so the book of Genesis offers us some really interesting insights into what it means to be Jewish, but also what it means to be a human, how to navigate struggles, pain, captivity, we might call it moments of brokenness, moments of moving away from life, those kind of things. This is what this piece tells us. It tells us how to traverse pain and brokenness and come out on the other side with life. And so, reminder, this book is not a history book. Genesis was never written in order for the Jewish people to say, this was this king and this is how long they lived. That was never the point of the piece. It was always for Israel. And so again, we remember Babylonian captivity, 587 BC, again, they are put in captivity and they're asking the question, how do we hold on to what it means to be a Hebrew? And so the whole point of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy is that it was a response to the fears of assimilation. How do we hold on to our ritual? How do we ensure that the future generations keep monotheistic perspectives, right? How do we keep Judaism kosher? That was always the point of the piece. And so when we keep that in mind, we know almost everywhere throughout this piece, when you read about Joseph, when you read about Noah, any of these main messianic characters, we always see pictures of Israel. So Israel is miniaturized all throughout this story in all of the different characters that we see. So today we're going to do a little bit of a chunk. We're going to go chapter 44 and verses 1 and 2 of 45, because that's typically how rabbinical readings do it. They go through the whole chapter when it comes to 44, because the whole thing's kind of working up to a restorative moment. So we're going to read about the beginning of the restorative moment and kind of the climactic moment, and then the rest is going to kind of delve into and sit with restoration when you get into the rest of 45, 46, 47. So here we go. Reminder again, Joseph, the story, it's really about Israel. It's not just about some cute kid with a cute multicolored coat, right? That was never the intention. It's something so much deeper. It is a metaphor for Israel. And so the brothers, remember the brothers come back and they're about to experience a test, right? And Joseph is kind of going back and forth with how does he experience restoration and forgiveness with these brothers who really did him wrong. So let me read this quote to you before we delve in, because it sets up this third encounter, according to Matthew Borowitz. So here we go. The third encounter, a repentant Judah pleads with Joseph on behalf of a father who has already lost a child dear to his heart. Judah's genuineness and contrite spirit, along with his moving words, penetrate the emotional wall Joseph had built around himself. Unlike Joseph's response in the second encounter, this time, he can no longer restrain himself. The wall has collapsed. He now weeps in the presence of his brothers. Now, finally, Joseph is able to confront these Canaanite strangers as equals and, more importantly, as brothers. So Joseph's process of forgiveness and reconciliation comes full circle. So again, we're going to read about this third encounter, the stage, the final stage of restoration that happens here. So here we go. Let's read through it. It's a handful. I'm going to do my best, even with a bit of a scratchy voice today. Here we go. Number 1, verse 1. Then he commanded the overseer of his house, saying, Fill the man's sacks with food as much as they can carry, and put each man's money into the mouth of his sack. And my goblet, the silver goblet, put it in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and his purchase money. And he did according to Joseph's words which he had spoken. The morning became light, and the men were sent on their way in their donkeys. They had exited the city, but had not gone far when Joseph said to the overseer of his house, Get up, pursue the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, Why have you repaid good with evil? Right, here's the trap. Is not the one master drinks from? Why, he even divines with it. You have done evil by the way you have acted. Verse 6 through 10. He overtook them, and he said these words to them. And they said to him, Why should my master say such words as these? Far be it for your servants to do such a thing as this. Behold, the money we found in the mouth of the sacks we returned to you from the land of Canaan. So how could we steal from your master's house silver or gold? Whichever one of your servants with whom it is found shall die, and also we will be slaves to my master. Bold words, right? And he said, Now indeed, so it is as you have spoken. But the one with whom it is found shall be my slave, and you shall be cleared. So they hastened, and each one lowered his sack to the ground, and each one opened his sack. He searched. He started with the eldest and finished with the youngest, and the goblet was found with Benjamin's sack. So they rent their garments, and each one loaded his donkey, and they returned to the city. And Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there, and they fell before him upon the ground. And Joseph said to them, What is this deed that you have committed? Don't you know that a person like me practices divination? And Judah said, What shall we say to my master? What shall we speak, and how shall we exonerate ourselves? God has found your servants' iniquity. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and the one whose possession the goblet has been found. But he said, Far be it from me to do this. The man in whose possession the goblet was found, he shall be my slave. But as for you, go up in peace to your father. Then Judah approached him and said, Please, my lord, let now your servant speak something into my lord's ears, and let not your wrath be kindled against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh. My lord asked his servant, saying, Have you a father or a brother? And we said to my lord, We have an old father and a young child of his old age, and his brother is dead, and he is left alone of his mother, and his father loves him. And you said to your servants, Bring him down to me, and I will set my eye upon him. And we said to my lord, The boy cannot leave his father, for if he leaves his father, he will die. And you said to his servants, If your youngest brother does not come down with you, you will not see my face again. And it came to pass that when we went up to your servant, my father, and we told him these words, my lords from the father said, Go back, buy us a little food. But we said, We cannot go down, only if our youngest brother is with us will we go down. So he's recapping the story to Joseph, right? For we cannot see the man's face if our youngest brother is not with us. And your servant, my father, said to us, You know that my wife bore me 2 children. The one went away from me, and he said, He has surely been torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. Now, if you take this one too away from me, and misfortune befalls him, you will bring down my hoary head of misery and grave to the grave. And now, when I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, so now he's saying, look, if I come back to my father, and Benjamin's not with us, he's going to die. His soul is attached to his boy's soul. That's a heavy phrase. It will come to pass when he sees that the boy is gone, he will die. And your servants will have brought down the hoary head of your servant, our father, in grief to the grave. For your servant assumed responsibility for the boy from my father, saying, If I do not bring him to you, I will have sinned against my father forever. So now please let your servant stay instead of the boy as a slave to my lord, and may the boy go up with the brothers. So he's saying, look, take me. Don't take my brother. Take me instead. For how will I go up to my father if the boy is not with me? Let me not see the misery that will befall my father. Now Joseph could not bear all those standing beside him, and he called out, Take everyone away from me. So he's one stood with him when Joseph made himself known. So no one stood with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept out loud. So the Egyptians heard, and the house of Pharaoh heard. Again, that's a lot of reading, right? That's a good amount. It's a big chunk. Let's go through it now. There's some really interesting concepts I want to share, and I'm very excited to do so. So look at this, verses 1 and 2. Notice, he commanded the overseer, fill the men's sacks with food as much as they can carry, and then he tells them about the goblet, right? Put the goblet there as well. And so a goblet, this is an interesting idea historically for an Egyptian. This is a symbol of power and identity, was that golden or silver goblet. So he gives the audience this idea that the brothers here, again, we're kind of retelling the story, right? The brothers stole Joseph's power, but not just that, his identity, right? And this happened in the beginning of the story, but we're replaying again through these different, these tricks he's putting on them. But there needs to be restoration, right? That's the idea. There needs to be restoration in regard to this. So again, much like the Israelites felt when Egypt and Babylon took them captive, there needs to be a restorative process. God needs to intervene and bring them life again. This is the idea. And again, a goblet, right? There's so much deep metaphor just in the goblet alone. So we'll keep going here. Verse 4, notice this. Joseph said to the overseer of the house, "Get up, pursue the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid good with evil?'" Most of the interesting rabbinical interpretations, almost all of them make a correlation here. It's a connection that most people don't get, but it's a connection to Egypt. So remember this. Remember the story of Pharaoh and Moses, right? Moses says, "Let my people go." And finally, after Pharaoh's son dies, right, the firstborn son dies, then he says, "Get out," right? Just go. And I've always thought it was weird that Pharaoh, after letting the people go, he would then turn and chase them again. You ever wondered that? Like, we've heard God hardened his heart, but why, right? Why would he send him back, right? Pharaoh back to chase the Israelites. Why? After losing so much. Well, here's an interesting twist, and I found this from William Davidson, and he's quoting the Megillah here. He says, Joseph, much like Pharaoh to Moses, chases those he allowed to leave because restoration calls for absolutes. And this is what he means by this. He continues, Pharaoh's empire must collapse for Yahweh's hand to be seen. Joseph must bring his brothers back in order that Yahweh's hand be praised. The whole idea here is in order for the whole thing to be fully seen, we have to have the story go full circle, right? The whole story needs to come to an end. It can't just, the Israelite narratives, they don't just leave you hanging. There is full turn, full restoration. It never ends halfway. And so the story has to have a resolution, a conclusion, a restorative moment. And this is why, of course, Pharaoh is going to collapse fully. And this is why, again, Joseph has to bring his brothers back. He has to chase them back because the story wouldn't be done, right? He needs to fully experience this restorative moment. He could have given them food, but the forgiveness, the restorative moment wouldn't have happened had he not gone back after them and brought them in. It's an interesting moment, interesting twist. Verse 10, and again, I'm going to skip through a little bit of things that don't have a lot of meaning because there's just so much here. But notice this, Joseph sets up the trap, and he sets it up with Benjamin. And I know many people have asked, why is the focus on Benjamin, right? Is it just because he's the youngest? But if you think about it, Hebraically, you'd want to put most of the focus on the oldest. So why does it keep going back to focusing on the youngest, right? Now, indeed, so as you have spoken, the one with whom it shall be found will be my slave, right? So again, why Benjamin? Well, here's the thing about Benjamin. Benjamin, he is the central figure for Joseph, basically. And there's some interesting literary reasons here. Toward the end, we see Benjamin. Because Benjamin is going to be basically what Joseph becomes, right? Benjamin is kind of the ending of the story. And I'll show you what I mean by this. Matthew Borowitz, he says it this way. The tribe of Benjamin were known for their courage, which is reflected in the blessing of Jacob. Despite being the smallest of all tribes, they played a vital role in the history of Israel. So remember, as any Jewish person's reading this, they're reading about the brothers. What they're really reading is about the tribes of Israel, right? Israel's broken up into these 12 tribes. They're reading, when they read Benjamin and Judah or any of these, they're seeing those tribes, those literal tribes. Most of them are not taking this very literally, by the way. And so Benjamin, despite being the smallest of all tribes, they played a vital role in the history of Israel, especially during the reign of Saul, who are descended from the tribe of Benjamin. They are the tribe that brings about reconciliation and finality. Did you catch that? So interesting, right? Why so much focus on Benjamin? Well, the idea here is why Joseph needs Benjamin is because Benjamin is literally the symbol for Israel of reconciliation, of the turnaround, the moment. And so Joseph needs to have Benjamin there. He needs to bring Benjamin back. If he does not, he doesn't have restoration. Why Benjamin? That's why. Again, there's so much literary beauty here that we don't pick up on as just 21st century readers. We miss it completely. But if you look at how the Jewish readers read this, the whole thing hums. It makes sense. Benjamin is the picture, the tribe of restoration, finality. You have to have Benjamin if Joseph is going to have finality. Yes, good. Okay. Verse 13, notice this. So they rent their garments, and each one loaded his donkey, and they returned to the city. Why rip your garments? Why all of this? Interesting, this idea. This is an ancient practice of tearing clothes in a tangible expression of grief and anger in the face of death. Look at this. Kriya is a Hebrew word meaning tearing, and it refers to the act of tearing one's clothes or cutting a black ribbon worn by one's clothes. So the brothers here, they're tearing their garments because they believe they're about to die. Heavy, right? They believe they're being punished by God. It's the same reason Job rips his garments. It's a ancient feeling of like, I have nothing left. I'm about to die. Everything has come off of me, right? So again, you will see this tearing of clothes from anywhere from the Odyssey, the Iliad, to the story of Job. You'll see this in ancient literature everywhere. Interesting little addition there that I thought you might like to know. Verse 15. What is the debt if you have committed? Don't you know that a person like me practices divination? Now, many people have asked me, Joseph? Like he's practicing supernatural means here. Joseph is doing something like demonic stuff here. Like when did this happen? Is it because he's an Egyptian now? Divination? Right? But when looking at rabbinical traditions from the past, it becomes really clear what was meant here, especially when you look at like the Hebraic translation. So I wanted to share this because I've had many people ask about this. In fact, a couple of you have asked specifically about this when we get to it. Was he now a sorcerer? Was he considered this because of his dreams? All of that. Actually, interesting twist when you look at how they interpreted this. Notice this. This is from Tarnog Egolis, which is basically a very ancient Hebraic interpretation, which was like from the Hebrew into the more of like a Roman kind of style of reading. So Aramaic, you would see it move from there to Aramaic. And so very, very ancient, very old. So this would have been like first century movement. So watch this. This is how they interpreted that from the Hebrew. Don't you know that a person as esteemed as I knows how to test and ascertain through knowledge, reason, and discernment that you stole the goblet? So this is not at all about like the dark arts. Just so you're aware, this is literally, it's talking about using logic and reason, right? It's using your prefrontal cortex, right? This is using your gray matter, your brain. He's saying, don't you know that I'm an intelligent man? Don't you know that I am known for being logical? That's the idea here. It had actually nothing to do with the dark arts. So whew, you can relax on that one. So let me keep going. Verse 17. But he said, far be it from me to do this. The man with whom possession of the goblet was found, he shall be my slave. But as for you, go up in peace to your father. So again, he's setting the trap here in this narrative. Judah, though, we talked about this a couple different discussions past, right? Judah is going to begin taking on the role of leader. Judah is going to become one of the forerunners of one of the main voices for Israel. And so this is where Judah has one of the biggest shifts. He begins to choose to begin to be a sacrificial leader. And so he's becoming this strong tribe, and he's actually beginning to say, look, I am the leader of my family. I am the strong leader. I am the eldest. I will do what's best for my family, right? And so he's beginning to stand up and take that role. And you'll see more of that in a little bit. Verses 19 through 23, really not a lot said throughout there when you read rabbinical interpretations, but basically keep in mind, he's going through the story again. He's saying, look, we went back to father. Father said, do not take Benjamin or I'm going to die. I've already lost one son. I can't bear to lose another. That's the idea here. He's saying he's basically just the brothers, they're in agreement that this is a very sad thing if they have to lose the other brother too. And so as it goes, it came to pass when they went up to the servant. So he's still talking about that. Then you get to verse 28. And this is where things begin to pop again, because we've gone through the summation that he gives to Joseph. So verse 28, the one went away from me, and I said, let me go to 27. And your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 children. And the one went away with me and said, he has surely been torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. And then notice 29. Now, if you take this one 2 away from me, and misfortune befalls him, you will bring down my hoary head to misery and to the grave. So again, a reference toward both Benjamin and Joseph. So notice this. One begins the narrative, and one's going to sustain the narrative, and together they're going to close it. So Joseph starts the narrative, starts with his family, brings honor, blessing to his family, and then he's gone. The family is now sustained. Benjamin. Benjamin gives them hope and promise. He's sustaining, and now at the end, for the narrative to come full circle, you have to have Joseph and Benjamin together. Yeah? I know. You have to have a messianic character, and you have to have a restorative moment. And Benjamin's going to be that restorative moment for Joseph and the brothers. He's going to be the one that brings them together. It's a beautiful concept. So verse 33 and 34, notice this. So now please let your servant stay instead of the boy as a slave to my Lord, and may the boy go up with his brothers. For how will I go up to my father if the boy is not with me? Let me not see the misery that will befall my father. And so this is again is proof. Judah has become the brother he was intended to be. Judah, he becomes this messianic role. And this is kind of proof. Peter Enns says it well, I think, when he says this. Judah takes on the messianic role of sacrificial leader in this moment. He takes on the pain of his brothers in order that they might experience freedom. And you, again, knowing that Hebraic literature is filled with messianic moments and characters, this is big for Judah. Judah has a moment where he takes on the pain, the brokenness, the injustice. This moment is unjust. And he's saying, I'm willing to take all of that on so that my brothers and my father will be free. It's beautiful. And again, this is really the Christ role as well, isn't it? Right? He takes on the anger, the pain of the people during Roman era, right? He does this, again, in hopes that Jesus becomes kind of the scapegoat, right? For the hate, the injustice, the anger. The Romans want to attack the Jews want to attack the Romans. He says, no, if you're going to attack anyone, if there's going to be injustice anywhere, put that on me. Put it on me. And when you do that, when you see injustice, when you see someone who is innocent killed, murdered, you will see me respond in love. And so Judah literally takes on this role. And so what's interesting about those messianic individuals is that when we see, again, when we see love through a selfless act, it changes us, right? It causes our hearts to break. That's what typically happens when we see these moments of selfless love, of Judah saying, I will do it. Take me instead. Our hearts break. And notice this is when Joseph's response comes in. And I think it's so beautiful. Verse 1 and 2, Joseph could not bear all those standing beside him. And again, his heart's touched. Take everyone away from me. So no one stood with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. He tells his brothers, I'm here, right? And he wept so loud. He cries, his heart is so broken. And the Egyptians heard, and the house of Pharaoh heard. So Joseph's heart breaks, right? This is where this third moment of restoration happens. Beautiful. It happens when hearts are touched. Hebraically, it's when you finally can feel your enemy's pain. It's finally letting go of like the bitterness and the anger. That's the third part of reconciliation. It's completely letting that go. When you've seen the moment, you've observed the beauty of even your enemies, and you're able to say, my heart breaks. It either breaks for you or the fact that we've been broken up or we've been at odds with one another. My heart literally breaks now because I yearn for something so much better. I yearn for restoration. That's what this third moment looks like. And honestly, I think we see these moments all the time in our culture right now. Yes, we see terrible things happening. Yes, we just heard Zelensky say he wants to bomb Russia with nukes, right? And then we've heard Russia say, well, we'll bomb you with nukes. Crazy things are happening. I agree with you in this world. Crazy things are happening, but there are also these beautiful moments that you won't find on Fox or CNN. They don't make the news, but they're all around us daily, minute by minute. There are these moments that cause our hearts to stir. And I would argue if we would just remove ourselves from the TV long enough, we might see these moments and our hearts might break too. Look at some of these pictures. I just Google searched some ones that touched my heart. I thought about these moments where someone's given something, not asking anything in return, just a gift. Something someone might need. I saw this moment with this runner when they fell and this other runner stops in the middle of the race and they help this other runner up. Selfless acts of love. It's stepping in, giving someone some shoes to wear and taking off your own to give them. Right? It's that moment where the little kid pushes the other one up the hill so he can go down, knowing he's not going to get his turn. It's the moment where you pick up someone else's kid in a moment of crisis and you run and you try to save that kid from injury. You do these selfless things. So beautiful. When we see these actions of selflessness, of love, we're moved to want to participate. And I think that's what draws me to the Christ story the most. That's what draws me to the cross, actually. People have asked me, it's such a horrific moment. Why do you read it? Why are you drawn to it? And for me, I say, it is the selfless act of love. It's taking on all the hate, the anger, the injustice, saying, I will walk the thing. I'll do the thing. I'll take your hate. I'll recycle it with love. And when I do this, I hope you might have your heart stirred too and want to do the same. And that restorative moment needs people like that. A restorative moment needs an individual to step in and say, look, I'll take on the anger. I'll take on the pain. For Joseph, he needed his heart to break. And it only happened because his brother was willing to step in and say, I'll take the pain. I'll take the injustice. And Joseph, who has been doing that all along through the story, that's when the full circle hits. And I can't wait to share with you the rest of it next week. But for now, I wanted to try something new with you. Many of you have asked me, what do my devotionals look like? What do I do in my time? What do I do to like meditate? We talk about meditating periodically. And I thought, I want to share with you an idea. And I'm going to read one of my favorite scriptures with you. But this is found in Psalm 22. And so I'm going to look up Psalm 22. Psalm 77, actually. Let's do Psalm 77. And I'm going to take you through something called praying scripture. And praying scripture is actually a really beautiful Hebraic tradition. And what we do is a 3-part piece together. And so I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to read over the chapter 3 different times, but I'm going to ask you to do something different every time. So as I read, what I want you to do first is you're going to listen. You're going to listen for a word to consider. One word. So I want you to close your eyes. You're going to listen for one word. So here we go. Psalm 77. I cried out to God for help. And again, I'm choosing this one because it fits really well with the story of Joseph and the brothers, and this idea of where is God in the middle of all this pain and brokenness? Where is God in the middle of captivity? Where is God when I feel like I'm so lost and alone? Listen for a word that stands out to you. Close those eyes. Here we go. I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated, and my spirit asked, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in his anger withheld his compassion? Then I thought, to this I will appeal, to the years when the Most High stretched out his right hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God? You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. The waters saw you, God. The waters saw you and writhed. The very depths were convulsed. The clouds poured down water. The heavens resounded with thunder. Your arrows flashed back and forth. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind. Your lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So I want you to think about one word that stood out to you. Just one word. One word. For me, I thought it was interesting for me that your path, I think oftentimes I get very stuck with this idea that there's only one path, one perspective. In this idea of your path, that was the phrase, the word path stood out to me. I don't know about you. I'd love to hear from you. What word is it that you were drawn to now? Think of that word. Hold it there for just a moment. The word that stood out to you. We're going to read it again. Here we go. This time, again, this is what Jewish people will do called Lectio Divina, praying scripture. They'll read it through with 3 different intentions. This intention now is number 2. I want you to listen for a phrase that stands out to you. So you're listening for one phrase. I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated. My spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated, and my spirit asked, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Then I thought, to this I will appeal, the years of the Lord Most High. Stretched out his hand, I'll remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I'll remember your miracles of long ago. I'll consider all your works and meditate on your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God? You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm, you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. The waters saw you, God. The waters saw you and writhed. The very depths were convulsed. The clouds poured down water. The heavens resounded with thunder. Your arrows flashed back and forth. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind. Your lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So now I want you just to hold on to that one phrase you heard. Whatever the phrase is, just hold on to it. Repeat it a couple times while those eyes are closed. Just repeat that word, that phrase. Make sure you have it. Just hold on to it. And to model it, I'll tell you which one is standing out to me right now. Though your footprints were not seen. That one to me, I oftentimes think I wish that things would just be so easily planned for me, that I could just see where everything was going. But I think that's an easy way out, right? If everything was planned, I would probably miss out on a lot of beauty because I already know. And so right now in my life, I feel like there's things that are up in the air. And I think the reason I like your footprints were not seen is that it takes a bit of trust, a bit of faith that somehow the universe is moving towards something good. My life is moving towards something good. I like the idea of that right now. And I don't know what yours is, but again, I'd love to hear from you what you wrote here. On the next one, I'm not going to read it again. Here's what I want you to do. Later tonight, or maybe even after this video, what I'd love for you to do is take some time. I want you to pray, however it is you pray or meditate. I want you to think about, why is that word and that phrase standing out to you right now? Like I just did with this idea of in my life right now, I want you to think about, what place are you in your life? Are there decisions you're making, conflicts that you have, whatever the thing is? How might this word and this phrase be helpful or a challenge for you in this place and time that you're in? Whatever space you're navigating in right now, whatever experiences you're having right now, whether work, friendships, family life, whatever it is, can that fit into, could it be a challenge for you right here, right now? Think about that. I'd love to hear how this went for you. If it worked, awesome. Maybe it didn't. I'd love to hear from you in that regard too. That's a very ancient practice called Lectio Divina. It's how oftentimes Jewish people choose to meditate on Scripture. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is, again, such a pleasure to do with you every single week. Please consider going to ethos-church.org/donate. Partner with us. Let's continue sharing these videos. We really think there's something powerful here every single week to share. As always, hit that subscribe button and continue following us in what we're doing. We'd love to share this whole playlist when we finish 2 years in the book of Genesis. What an awesome opportunity. Everyone, I love you, and I can't wait to hear from you next week as we delve into the next chapter. Take care. We'll see you.